Hello, my name is Art Perry, also known as Professor Art, and welcome to Rebel Culture, the place that leads us into art, culture, all kinds of creativity that's challenging, that's difficult, and revelatory. You know, it's very, very exciting. And it pushes the boundaries of human experience. And I think more than anything, and it's a word that's overused, but it has a meaning, right? Words are so difficult because they're always up for interpretation. So when I use the word authenticity, which I do a lot, to me that means a kind of truth that is without question. It's often a basic human need. It can be spiritual, it can be just basically experiential, but authenticity is something that there's no posing. It's not faux, right? It's not fake. It's real to the bone. And I found that our rebel culture, by people who are often seen as misfits, outsiders, people on the margins of society, they have a singular vision that allows them to go into the deepest parts of understanding, or at least raise the biggest questions. So, in doing so, in doing so, these rebels set themselves apart from what's already coded and successful, and within the society in which they're existing. They're not making a product that fits into something which is already there. They're trying to deal with something which is purposefully not unique, that's not the word I'm looking for, is purposefully, let's go back to authentic, right? What I'm going to weave into today is how I've grown up with a love, admiration, and passion for American culture, for the music, for the literature, for so much that's come from the land of the free and the brave, because there is that American ingenuity, American bravado that isn't codified with an old, many centuries cultural weight. If someone comes up with an idea or an expression that is special for that moment, it's celebrated. It's not usually it's not seen as a threat, but rather something to be championed. What's happening right now with all the different aspects of culture and education, both of which are part of have been my existence. My thinking and everything has been based on my decades of teaching at a university, my practice as an artist, and also just my love of human expression. And America has led the way very often in the aspect of free form, delicious, creative invention. Now, there was a time when the flamboyant, the outrageous, the absolutely thrilling expressions, like, let's take an example, Little Richard. Could anybody be more of an explosive, unique talent than Little Richard. Little Richard was invited to the White House, right, in 1994, and there he is, shaking hands with President Clinton, the man who said, "I'm the king of the blues and the queen too." Can you imagine today, with this revisionism, with this attempt to put down all aspects of diversity, of different kinds of sexual understanding, orientation, whatever. It's being politically, it's on the cutting block. Now, someone like Little Richard, unabashedly camp, silly. I mean, Mr. Tutti Frutti, oh Rudy, right? But here he is, invited to the White House. Just imagine in our time if that could happen. Here are some photos that I took the year before of Little Richard when he was performing. And, oh, such a performer. There'd be no Elton John, no Jimi Hendrix, no David Bowie without Little Richard. He is just paramount. The first, listen to those first Beatle records where Paul McCartney is just those howls and squeals that got the the world howling and screaming. They came from Little Richard, and and he also put his uniqueness, his authenticity, out there. Now, another example, I mentioned that was certainly a major trailblazer for people like David Bowie in his sort of gender-bending ways. Well, David Bowie also was invited to the White House. You got your mother in a whirl. Can't tell if you're a boy or a girl. That's what's got American politics right now in a whirl. Are you a boy? Are you a girl? It saddens me. It maddens me. I never thought, having come through the 1960s. Today I'm going to talk about my own personal experiences and my understanding, excuse me, of culture, and why American culture, more than any other in my lifetime, has defined a kind of excellence and thrilling, adventurous. You see, things come along. Let me have some coffee here. Things come along in your life, and they can, as I say, shock you. They can thrill you. They have that sense of awe. Something is so beautiful, but it's also thrilling. The idea of the sublime. And we don't always understand it. At the get-go, we're pushed back by its unfamiliarity, yet like a spice, right? On the first take, whoa! But then you realize, oh, that was I like that kick. I like that. You have to give these visionary artists, and a lot of the people within rebel culture, I think, are visionaries, are confident enough in who they are and what they think and what they say and how they create things. It can be very abstract. It can be, even nonsensical, yet it is for us, right? The audience, the viewer, the listener, the reader, whatever. Um, it takes us in a place where we otherwise would not have gone. And some people are frightened by that. If you're a control freak, if you're someone who is wanting to not have anything that you don't fully understand within your own little blinkered world, no, I don't want that because I don't understand it. A lot of the people who are making this cultural decisions right now uh, in America, politically, that have the power, the clout, the finances to do these things, they are not, uh, you know, wide thinkers. They are not people who understand the avant-garde, where they can even spell avant-garde, right? I'm not being condescending here. I'm being realistic, right? And uh, these people are trying to enforce what they're comfortable with, what they think is right. There's no wiggle room for the little Richards of this world, as brilliant as they are. What I want to do today is to look at the people who, specifically American artists, who push boundaries. Artists push boundaries. And then there are the people who create boundaries. The authoritarians, the fascist mentality of complete control and subservience. I've been thinking about this for over a month now, and I've made a lot of notes. There's a lot of notes here on my thoughts on this topic, right, of rebel culture and censorship. And it's too important to ignore, right? Uh, there was a quote from just recently, right? Actually, today, I believe, in by Nick Cave, and I'll have another quote by Nick Cave shortly. But Nick Cave's quote, if I can find it here, yeah, this is in his blog that he has where you can ask questions and so forth. And he made a comment about politics, right? Politics and art. And he said, I try to keep politics, cultural or otherwise, out of the music I am involved with. I find that it has a diminishing effect and is antithetical to whatever I am trying to achieve. Okay, that that's a truth, right? I understand that the worst thing is for someone to be pedantic and to wave their finger, and that's what we don't like about authoritarians. Yet, you can only be bruised so much. You can only see the things that you celebrate, that you know are of immense worth to so many people, being censored, being banned, being destroyed. And you have to speak out. And I know you put yourself in a position of, can be viewed as, by many people as being self-righteous and pompous and so forth. But it's not. It's if we're talking about authenticity, uh, moral correctness is authentic, and that's kind of where I'm taking it today. I'll keep it within the somewhat jocular, and try to find the humor and juice and vitality and all, but also there is the the worry, right? The concern about what's happening. And I'll have quotes from people, not only my own views, and people who I think have, you know, dealt with the questions that are being raised and the threats that are being shown, much more articulated than I. I'm steaming. I'm boiling here. I'm on fire. And let's do it this way. In my life, the experience of living has been embraced, enhanced, made livable by art, culture, right? Literature, education. These are the things which make the mundane magical. And when I was a young lad in the 50s, right, I thirst for things that were exciting. I think every kid does, right? When you're cognitive embracing existence, and you move away from sort of a sheltered sense of comfort into your own identity, your own passions and loves. And one thing that I found very early on, let's take the age 7, right? When I was 7 in Ottawa, where I grew up, this was a time, of course, before internet, before a lot of access to culture, both pop culture or more fine art culture, right? It's kind of cloistered at that time. You couldn't type in something and get 50,000 different references to it. So what we had in Ottawa in the 50s were two television stations that streamed American programming, along with Canadian, but the American ones, for instance, the Sunday evening, there was the Ed Sullivan Show. Now, the Ed Sullivan Show was a variety show, but it also was about American culture. And the culture you didn't always hear on the radio, weren't always aware of, right? For all the quirkiness and stiffness of that show, the Ed Sullivan Show, it did allow for, I remember watching it and seeing these unique acts like early rock and roll, Gene Vincent, Johnny Cash was on, Ray Charles. A bit later on, you got James Brown. James Brown! I wasn't ready for James Brown, right? But in 1956, you know where I'm going with this. 1956, September 9th, I believe, the first appearance of Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show. Now, this moment and this entity, this totally, we're just in the post-war period. The Eisenhower years, everything was, predicated on nesting, on subdivisions, people moving into homes with barbecues and cars, and that whole aspect of suburban living that came along in a post-war period. And then all of a sudden, this guy from Memphis, right? Long hair, wearing velvet shirts, and obviously, a sexual critter. And there he arrived, and it changed everything. It wasn't just popular music. Certainly, within rebel culture, what Elvis Presley did was phenomenally important, right? He wasn't someone who, he didn't write his own music. He wasn't one of the, you put in the same category as Dylan or Joni Mitchell or whatever. But what he had was, he was someone who opened the doors, right? And I remember my mother, you know, being fascinated, like everybody was, by Elvis Presley at this time and what was happening in America. But what she was fascinated by was his clothes, his fashion sense, because no one dressed like that. I mean, before who there was, Frank Sinatra in his suits and ties. But the thing with Presley is he was from Memphis, and he would do his shopping in a place where the blues performers, the black blues people, would buy their clothes at Lansky Brothers, and they were crazy, right? I mentioned like the velvet shirts, but there were, so many different things like the wild sports jackets, the whole thing, and you may say, "Oh, that's just wallpaper. It's just, no. It was a a free style. It was moving out of that. What was that? Uh, the man in the gray flannel suit, right? The idea of conformity at that time, the idea of fitting in. And along comes Elvis, and he can't be denied because of his talent and so forth. So my brother and many other people would buy the records. At that time, you would buy 78 RPMs, revolutions per minute. Large. They were the size of dinner plates. They were huge. And then a bit later, they got to the 45s, which were much easier to have and didn't break as easily. But at the time, and my brother had this 78 of Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel on the flip side. Now, here we get into something quite interesting. Okay. The love of live performing, right? There's one thing to experience culture um, as a product, right? As something you hear on the radio, you purchase as a record or whatever. Then there is the live performance where you're sharing time and space with someone. My first live performance was, of all things, Elvis. True. The following year, after he appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show in Ottawa, April 1957, Elvis appeared. I think he did 2 shows at the place called the Auditorium. Anyway, I was 8, and I ended up going to it. And I think it was all of 20 minutes long, if I'm not mistaken. But it was like something I've never experienced. The hysteria, the energy of that performance of Elvis Presley, wearing his gold jacket. And I remember he had a huge some kind of amulet around his neck, I don't know if it was like turquoise or what it was. It was quite substantial, and I was thinking, what's this? He's wearing jewelry and necklace. The boundaries are easily broken, and often that's embraced as being unique, as being something exciting, something new. And that's always been a hallmark to American creativity. At the moment, that's being squelched, that's being taken away. Anything that's outside of a very narrow parameter where, it's not about art and creativity, it's about containment and authoritarianism. And I figured, oh, everything's going to survive. There's always been this. But right now, when you have the universities being shut down, people of incredible talent and vision being removed from their positions and being replaced by people who don't know what the hell they're doing and have no right to be there. And this is not only wrong, it is damaging. And I know it'll probably all, I hope, um, not be a long-term thing, but it's happening now, and bruises take a time to heal. And I think this is really, um, really damaging. I read you that a quote from Nick Cave about the idea of politics and art, and how he doesn't he finds that it gets in the way, and puts a kind of an unfortunate pallor to his to what he's trying to do. Um, Understood, but um, he also made a comment about art. Some people are articulate beyond any of our abilities, and that's why they're singer-songwriters. How often have I listened to Dylan's lyrics and been agog? I like being agog. I guess that's what happens when you get in a state of awe or wonder. You get agog. That's a great onomatopoeic word. Nick Cave is someone who, in his, he's not American, uh, but he's someone who's definitely influential. And I just want to, here's a quote by Nick Cave about art, because we live in difficult times, and he's aware of that. So he says this: "The world is sick, and yes, it can be cruel, and it would be a whole lot sicker and a whole lot crueler if it were not for painters and filmmakers and songwriters, the beauty makers, wading through the blood and muck of things, whilst, there's a word, I love whilst reaching skyward to draw down the very heavens themselves." Now, most people wouldn't articulate the art experience in that way. They might use terms like beauty, like the beauty makers, but the idea of bringing it into almost a divine revelation, where you draw down from the very heavens. But I want to deal with something right now. I just this morning I was reading the morning news, as is my penchant, and I was shocked to read that the Louvre Museum in Paris, the most visited cultural site in, I don't know if it's the world, but at least in Europe, had closed. The Louvre Museum closed its doors because it couldn't handle the people. Now, this is an endemic thing that's happening specifically in Europe. to people looking for culture. I mean, I think it's wondrous that people want to see paintings. They want to visit places like Venice, that they want to see the Acropolis in Athens. Yet all these places are paying the price of the amount of people who are going there. Now, I put this image here of currently what's happening with the Louvre, and specifically, of course, Mona Lisa, where everybody wants to go and get a selfie with, and many people don't even look at the work. They just put their backs to it and take a selfie. And here I am with, Mona. Yet, it used to be that, and I think that technology, I don't need to go there right now, but technology has changed the way which we interact not only with the world, but with culture. There's a commodification, the whole selfie mentality of not experiencing something, taking your own vision and thoughts and standing in front of a painting or listening to a concert. Everybody's got their phone up and they're doing that rather than experiencing the moment for what it is. And it can be reaching down from the heavens, right? But you don't see that when you put your face in front of it and take your picture. I'm sounding like an old curmudgeon. In my day, but in my day, I could go to the Louvre Museum. I could walk in and I could experience Mona Lisa, like these people in a photo I took in 1981, right? That's many years ago. But you had small clusters of people, like a dozen people maybe, standing there. And, occasionally a person might take a quick photo of it. Never saw someone take their own photo in front of it like that. And it became an experience. I remember when I saw the Mona Lisa, it was incredible, that kind of feeling. Here's another image showing today's crowding in to see the Mona Lisa in the Louvre. And this other photo was taken a number of years later. I took in 1988. Now, I'm not trying to do a Glory's Day thing here, right? What I'm saying is, I think it's incredible that and wonderful that people want to go to the Louvre Museum. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. Not everybody can understand the complexities of culture and art. I've spent my life studying it, studying painting, architecture, music, etc. So when I go to, let's take an easy example, Chartres Cathedral, the great Gothic cathedral, a number of kilometers outside of Paris. You walk in there, this Gothic cathedral, you don't have to know about how the flying buttresses are taking the weight to allow those columns to go up into the Gothic arch, which is meant to be pointing heavenward, more heaven coming in here. And you don't have to know the iconography, the stories that are on the stained glass. The light is coming through that. And all of this patina of emotion that goes into making something like Shark Cathedral is instantaneously understood or felt. Um, I read a quote actually today. I did a lot of reading before I sat down here. Brian Eno has a book dealing with art, and he talks there about Brian Eno, the musician who began with Roxy Music and then pretty well defined what we know now as ambient music. A brilliant thinker, also a visual artist. Brian Eno, E-N-O. Anyway, Brian Eno said that art is at its very most immediate expression emotional. Right? We get an emotional charge from it. And it's that creates an experience. It creates an emotional vibration. It's kind of cosmic there. But I think, I'm saying all this stuff I'm talking about, whether it's awe, wonder, authenticity, it's all emotional. It's all something which makes you glad you're alive, right? That it's not quotidian. It's it's a way of saying that I'm living full throttle. I'm experiencing things, and um, American culture, art and culture, has repeatedly fed me those revelations, those the buzz, the heat, I'm glad I'm alive to have experienced this feeling. Uh, and, the more I learn about it, the deeper my appreciation, the deeper my passion, the deeper my respect. But what I was trying to make, the point I was making, is that the creators of this art, the people who put all of their abilities, their beliefs, their talents into something in a lifetime, and then we experience momentarily. Uh, that's there. Right? That is, it's immediately there. It's emotionally there. And if you want to go in a deep dive and uh, um, try to understand the complexities of it, that's great. And it may be fuller and more understood, but the immediacy of great art, whether it's a painting or reading a book or going to a dance or any kind of live performance, is the the visceral emotional awe of confronting that. And I think it's fair to say that all great art is an emotional explosion. It's something which makes you gasp, right? And you don't always know why, but you do. And I think that's what Nick Cave is trying to say, that the world is sick. But if that's all you thought about, if you didn't reach for that piece of music, if you didn't, you know, go to a concert where you shared with other people I mean, there's nothing like a a musical concert event where everybody is sympathetic, simpatico, and oscillating with the whatever the performer or performers are doing. And so I want to talk a little bit now about some of the American creators who took it as far as they could, right? Who dealt with freedom, expression, unfettered creative invention, and we get to share in that. It takes so much to within this idea of rebel culture to go into a zone where you're kind of on your own, where you believe you have something to say, something to feel, something to express, but because it's not already systematically understood, you're put into a position of, I got to have faith in this. I could follow my faith. This could be, no one can understand it. It can actually be a joke. It can be a waste of time. Or the hope is that it becomes something great. Now, America's always had this this verve for experimentation, right? Not afraid to do something new and distinctly different than what went before. And so I just want to talk about quickly a number of people, creative people, who I think are, for me at least, and many others. I'm not saying I'm a special person in this, but have been able to push the boundaries and like a shaman, go to that zone with our souls and then come back and go, hey, what about this? And I'm going to start with music and just mention I'm going to do two examples in each of the arts here. First, music. Miles Davis. Miles Davis, who is very, very approachable because of his understanding of beauty. His album Kind of Blue is the best-selling jazz album of all time, and it's gorgeous, right? It's something that I've listened to umpteen times. I don't know exactly how many times umpteen is, but umpteen plus I've listened to that. But there's another of his recordings called Dark Magus, which came out in, I think it was recorded, and it's a live recording, maybe in 1974, but it came out in 1977. And Dark Magus, just in it is perhaps the heaviest piece of music ever recorded. When I say heavy, I mean it makes metal music sound like James Taylor. It is, and he went there, right? Miles Davis went there, and thank goodness he did. Another person, American performer who is equally inventive and challenging, would be Captain Beefheart. Captain Beefheart, someone who also was a visual artist, was someone who he created a kind of oral sculpture, right? A kind of his lyrics were right from the Dada songbook. They were, on one hand, nonsense, but on another hand, totally wondrous poetry. And he's someone, not everybody's taste. A lot of American avant-garde, or what I'm calling, rebel culture, is not for everyone, right? Everybody doesn't want to have their soul shaken. They've got enough things doing it. But for those who want to go there, right? And I think to give it the time, to give someone like Captain Beefheart a moment of time and listen to, I don't know, one of his outstanding recordings like Trout Mask Replica or something like that. You may not get it. I mean, what's to get? But you experience it. And that's what I love about American culture. And right now, what I'm getting at is this this freedom is being threatened, and big time, not just by a few. The people in power are closing down, universities, major, Harvard, Columbia, and major centers of performing, like the Kennedy Center and so forth. They are being decimated by people who don't have even the slightest inkling of experimentation or the avant-garde or things that are reaching down from heaven. Okay, so let's move on to writing now. Writing. So many great American writers, and the one who's meant the most to me, and I, read very early on in my life, was Jack Kerouac. On the Road. Here's a 1950s copy of the On the Road. I have many different copies. This is I love this kind of pulp version with this sensationalistic. People didn't know what to do with this. This was a book about being as free as you can, on the road, traveling across America in cars in the late 40s and early 50s. I mean, this was why you got to get a job. You got to, what are you doing? You wastrel, right? On the road, This is the Bible of the Beat Generation, explosive bestseller that tells all about today's wild youth and their frenetic search for experience, capitalized, and sensation. Yes, that's what we want. Experience and sensation. That's what I'm talking about. Why is that wild youth? Why can there not be, that book it's still, when you read it today, and many people do. My students, I did a whole course on the Beat Generation, and that was one of the texts. Also, I'm going to mention a book which changed my life. There's a number of books. Maybe I'll do one podcast on, writings that changed my life. But that's this book called Geek Love by a writer who, didn't do a lot of writing. But this singular book she worked on for many years, Catherine Dunn, and it got rejected by so many people because the story is aberrant. The story is as weird as it gets. It's not fantasy in that sense of, Harry Potter fantasy with magicians and things. It deals with a couple who have a circus, and the times are changing and people aren't coming to the circus. So they need to find a way to bring people there. So the couple comes up with the idea, let's make freaks. Let's make deformed creatures that people come to the sideshow to see. So they started ingesting chemicals and radioactive materials and just all sorts of things. And yeah, they got their freaks. They got Arturo the Water Boy, or the Aqua Boy, I guess he was called. But he had fins instead of hands, and flippers rather instead of hands. And there was also Siamese twins, co-joined, and there was a albino little person, dwarf, and finally there was a normal-looking person, daughter who had special powers, sort of kinetic. Just it sounds. Oh, it is so beautiful. Just trust me and a lot of people who believed in this book. And it only could come out of American originality and freedom. And it was eventually published, and it went on. I think it says on the outside he is nominated for a National Book Award. One final little note on, I could go on for it. These things are so great. Geek Love, I could just talk about that book forever, but within the context of what we're doing today, I'll wind this down soon because I know I'm going on, and but I want to finish, at least go through the creative people, and then Terry Gilliam, who many of you know from Monty Python and his films that he directed, like Brazil. He called Geek Love the most romantic novel about love and family he'd ever read, and that he said, it made me ashamed to be so utterly normal. Right. The final thing I want to mention is here's the cover design for this book. Even within ideas of illustration and graphic art, America champions invention. And this designer, Chip Kidd is his name, who's since this is one of his early designs, has become one of the most applauded and lauded book designers. Anyway, he designed this cover for Geek Love using misshapen and deformed typeface. And the brilliance, oh, I love this, he did was the logo for the publisher, right? Knopf Books, is a wolfhound, the dog. And that's usually the logo is put on the book spine. And he did that. But what he did because of the book, and they didn't notice it until it was published, and then they thought it was hysterical. But it might not have got through in the original printing, was that he gave the wolfhound logo 5 legs instead of 4. So dealing with this theme of deforming and so forth is intrinsic to it. I'm going to finish up and try to end on this positive note. In art, well, who do we? Let's start with Jackson Pollock, the man who made huge American paintings. And let's forget the brush. I'm just going to do these amazing, energetic dance moves and capture that gesture. And that's what he did. There's symphonies. There's like layers upon layers. You know, we talk about the music that's made today and all these different layers of sounds and sampling and things. He was doing that with these this paint that he had on the floor, and this photo of him by Hans Nemeth has become kind of iconic. This is not an artist in a schmuck, with the European with the palette and daubing the paints in the easel. He's on the floor. He's wearing work boots and a black T-shirt, and he's doing these masterworks. And for me, um, the experience of standing in front of major Jackson Pollock paintings, as there are in both the Metropolitan Museum and in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. It is one of the reasons to be alive. Just to go there, just to get close enough that your peripheral vision is, embraced with the complete fullness of what he was doing. If you do that with Pollock, you're going to find yourself in an amazing, wonderful garden of delights. And there's a photo with my daughter, Lulu, who, whenever we go to New York, we celebrate Pollock and his work. And, as I said, she doesn't know about initially when we went there when she was quite young, abstract expressionism. And I didn't stand in front of it and say, well, let me tell you about abstract expressionism in the 1950s and the Cold War. And no. Just look at this, sweetie. What do you think? And she got it right away. And I think, too, because um, my daughter's musical, she uh, got into piano and composing and all that. I think the musicality and the rhythms of, like, one of the works is called here. It's called Autumn Rhythm. That's part of it. All right. So, okay, we're almost there. Finally, the paintings of Jean-Michel Basquiat, a man who died young, age of 27, who was dealing with the urban black experience in New York, but also just going right back to the roots of blues. And there was a book which I would recommend, if I can be so presumptuous. It's called Seeing Loud, Basquiat and Music. And this came out a couple of years ago. It's a handsome, substantial book, as you can see. And it came out of the Museum of Montreal Museum of Art. And also, I believe, it was co-sponsored by the library in Paris, I'm pretty sure. Just look at that great end papers there. Anyway, I would recommend this, and it has on the back this great image of his, which a vinyl, right, saying "Sunny Side Up" and the word "Dizzy" relating to Dizzy Gillespie. He's someone who is paramount to the understanding of American culture. So I think I'm going to wind it down now. I think that's enough for one go, and I'll pick this up in part 2. And there may be even a part 3. I'm not sure. There's just so much I'm concerned about here and want to voice. But today, at least we've got a celebration of American culture and what is, as I said, on the cutting block, right? The butcher block. And so keep your own faith, your own quest alive. And you may stumble, you get a bit bruised. Stand up and keep dancing because this is it. You know, this is our dance in the sun. So I'll say goodbye for now, and I will see you shortly after I do the second part of this. So until next time, ciao for now.